Good morning and welcome to City Talk. This is a weekly program that we air on a lot of local radio stations. We also have it as a podcast as well as a television program, and it's a method to educate and inform people about the operation and work of the City of Waco. I'm Larry Holsey, Director of Municipal Information for the city, and today I'd like to welcome one of our favorites. I always say that every time he's on, Johnathan Cook, who is the Director of the Parks and Recreation Department for the City of Waco. Johnathan, good to have you here.
Well, I tell you, it is great to be in here, and it has been...
I can't even reach and touch you.
I know, it's been quite a while since we've had a chance to sit down. I know typically this time of year, especially spring and summer, we're talking about a variety of events and a variety of programs. But I tell you, I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and sort of give people an idea of where we're at in terms of our Parks and Recreation departments, because like everybody, pretty significant impacts across the board with the coronavirus and the different areas of the city that have been impacted.
Absolutely. In fact, when you came in our studio, you immediately went over to our radio section, which is on the other end of the studio, ready to do it. And because we're still social distancing, and for those on the radio, I can't even touch his hand if I was to reach out, and he can't touch me. So
it's a new norm for everybody, but I tell you what, I mean, the resiliency of our community, of our staff, I just can't speak enough to the staff that I personally have across the city, how, you take a step back, you pivot, and then you keep on going, and we've really been able to come up with some innovative ways to keep our park system and also our recreation opportunities going.
That's what I want to talk about today, because Parks and Recreation is a very strong year-round project, but you also have such strong summer programs for people when they're not in school. First of all, they hadn't been in school for now since March, actually, so they're really and getting the exercise part of it. I think part of the COVID thing is it has brought people outside and enjoying the park system. And for a while, a lot of people think the parks were actually closed, but the parks were never closed, were they?
I tell you, we were very fortunate, and under the leadership of our health officials and our city council, we never implemented a full closure. And with Governor Abbott, he's been very clear that, exercise is such a critical component to not only the physical aspect of our lives, but the mental nature. And I tell you, studies are already coming out right now. And one, you can look at the number of park users that we've had, of people wanting to get outside. And if there is a bright spot of everything that we have been to, I really feel like people are reconnected with nature, reconnected with their families, and our park system has provided that forum and that opportunity for people to get outside and exercise and be together, and it's just so important. This all came down in the middle of March, and so this is our time of year to where things are growing, blossoming, blooming, and a great time to be outdoors. And so there has been a stretch where there have been days where it's like just amazing how many people are out enjoying the park system, the trails. Our trails have remained open, and even though we have had to close a lot of those parks amenities, which we were sort of phasing reopening now, it's just great to see how much Wacoans appreciate their parks, how much they expect. And I look back when we first started and we looked at scaling back skeleton crews, it didn't take us long in April to realize, like, man, the grass is getting too tall. There are areas of the city, the trash collection, those are all essential functions of the city that we have to have in place. And I think it's very important. And it's also emergency response. I mean, this is storm season. Tree crews are out and about. So I tell you, our department does a lot of things behind the scenes that have really come to the forefront right now and really crucial to keeping the city going.
Well, most people don't realize all the things the Parks and Recreation Department does. They think it's only about the community centers and some of the other. We'll talk about that too. But your crews have had to do a lot of changing in what their normality is and shifting gears and whatever else. But you've had to unprogram certain things that were already programmed. I know in our communication area, we've promoted things that didn't happen, and we didn't know because, like in our City Limits newsletter, I may tell y'all that you get with your water utility bills, we worked 60 days in advance on that. In other words, we're working right now on believe it or not, we're working on the August issue that will be mailed. No, that's not correct. We're working on the July issue that would be mailed with the June water bills. Right. And so we don't know the full details of what the Parks and Recreation Department is going to offer in July to put in the June issue that comes with a it comes with the June water bills. Well,
and I tell you, as we've scheduled out, it's just difficult because things that we would typically, maybe start a registration for, maybe be planning for this event, there's that time frame of work that goes on behind the scenes that you have to account for. It's not just a snap of the finger and something happens. So there would then be in the challenge, but I think one of the great things in the city, and you can do this. I mean, you talk about about a jack of all trades organization, and really a city, how we've all come in and helped in different areas that maybe we traditionally haven't helped in. And I know from the park side, we were able to redeploy employees to help at the animal center, animal shelter, the Cobb's Recycling Center. We've got employees now going over and going to help with the opening of the zoo, helping with the census. I mean, it's all about finding out where we can help ourselves as an organization. And I think that's been very important for us as we've seen a lot of our activities shut down. Like I said, you take that step back and see where you can help other people.
Well, I know one of the things you all, it really hurts you probably a whole bunch and to have to do this, but having to cancel the whole Brazos Nights concert series and, of course, the Big Fourth on the Brazos. And you normally have a concert in April, May, June, and then wrap up with the Big 4th of July. Right. You and I always have a radio program, talk all about that several times at least. And I know booking those things in advance is part of the problem. You can't book and guarantee somebody something that you know that you're not going to be able to want to pay them and all this kind of stuff. Talk a little about the Brazos Nights.
It gets to be. I mean, you're taking one of the historical traditions, landmark events. Almost 35 years now that Brazos Nights is taken down at the Suspension Bridge. And I tell you, obviously, I hold it near and dear to my heart and love putting on those events and seeing the community come together, and even July 4th. And those decisions, we got into it and we knew April wasn't going to happen, held out some hope. Maybe we can make May happen. And then just as you really see the importance for us to limit those social gatherings, and those restrictions are still in place. It's something that we're still, not having any permanent events, but any type of large event, you have to look at the public safety, and it really puts in perspective on what's important in life. And these are grand things and traditions that we will reignite and get back to. But I tell you, it's a lot of the contractual, the uncertainty of how travel will work out for different entertainers, the contractual obligations, a fireworks show. Those are all things that we held off as long as we could. But you just get to the point to where in our decisions that we make about events, we want to set an example for what everyone else can do. And like I said, we're slowly easing back into, you're starting to see some different sporting activities are getting approval to come back. But, that 10-person rule for groups is still into effect, and gatherings, and especially mass gatherings, those are still a ways off. But I tell you, it just makes us realize how good we had it here and how good it's going to feel to get those things back.
Absolutely. I know you made a lot of changes in your park system. For example, removing the basketball goals and maybe your the disc golf. Yeah, trying to keep it so people are not tempted to do the wrong thing, because you're helping the governor's orders and the mayor then to be in compliance. So, but those basketball goals have been put back up. And I know your park rangers are at least going through the parks and trying to encourage people to abide by the important thing to still shelter in place and keep the social distancing, that kind of stuff.
Very crucial, and especially in the parks, still trying to stay with people of your household. And we're seeing more and more of the protocols come from the state that have been extremely helpful. And I tell you, it's the closure of our park amenities, is step one, saying, we're going to need to touch down these areas with high-touch surfaces, restrooms, playgrounds, things where you might have contact sport, and once we're able to implement that and we see where it's at. But, more recently, we get into the reopening phase. Explain to community members all the time, if we could wave a magic wand and the risk could go away, it would be great just to say, open up, game on. But we've had to be very thoughtful in that process. Worked a lot in looking at what the recommendations, not only from the CDC, but the National Recreation and Parks Association, of how other cities have been handling it, and then with our local officials as well. We came back to the start of the month. We're able to open up things like our disc golf courses, tennis courts, golf course, really non-contact sports where it's minimal groups, really low touch. You have your own equipment. So that was our first phase. And now we've gone into a second phase, middle of the month, to where we looked at things such as our basketball courts, maybe some horseshoe pits. Our restrooms in the parks have opened back up. But with that said, it's sort of a phased approach. And as we're going a little further, now we're looking at, at what point do we say, okay, playgrounds? And if we we do open the playgrounds, we're going to have a disinfectant schedule in place, just like we have with our restrooms. We've increased that cleaning. So with every action, there's a reaction, and you have to balance that out. But I tell you, with the governor leading the way, he's given some dates, like with the zoos just now starting to back open. We've got our practice fields where practices can take place on city property. Competitive games can start taking place June 15th. And I'll just tell you, across the board, that June 15th date is a date that we have circled on the calendar right now, to where we think we're going to see really a third phase of openings. I tell you, it's all subject to change. And we're really monitoring what's going on here locally. Most of all, we know people's desire to want to get out and recreate and enjoy these amenities that we have, and we're working towards that.
I think we've all learned to appreciate the closeness of being together, but then also the outdoors, like you're talking about. And your staff has done an amazing job of making those changes and being very fluid in what we have to do all that kind of thing. I know you've taken the opportunity, though, at the same time, to use the lack of use and prior to that, and maybe doing some maintenance. Tell us some of the things. I know, because I've driven down through Pecan Bottom area, and I know they've resurfaced the splash pad down there. Right. And talk about some of the things that you've been able to do, maybe because of the lack of use.
Yeah.
Your community centers being closed and a few things like that.
Well, first and foremost, any indoor facility, we're able to go into a complete disinfection and of the tire. But, outside you're looking at the tree trimming schedule. You're looking at some painting, just general repairs. A lot of times, we used to always say in the industry, like winter projects. Of course, that doesn't really take place. We're Texas. Mm-hmm. We don't have much of a winter. But, golf course and ball fields, we've been able to go back, aerate, fertilize. They weren't getting the heavy usage. We've got some green spaces where we would typically have spring events. The turf looks better than it ever has. We've been able to go and do some work on irrigation systems. Just a lot of backlog type things to say, yeah, we need to get that. We've been able to get out and do. And that's been very important for us. It's a little break of it. Then also, it's just a general upkeep, and our community really expects, and rightfully so, I expect it as well, we're going to have a first-class park system. To do that, you put the time and work in, and that pays dividends in the long run for it.
The parks level has been raised as far as expectations, and you provided such great service and things like that. If you just joined us, we're visiting with Johnathan Cook, who is the director of our Waco Parks and Recreation Department, and he's got a lot of energy and a lot of great knowledge, and grew up in the system, and primarily in the special events area, which I know that's near and dear to your heart. Yeah. That's part of it. Now, I know this weekend that this is airing and starting on Hawaiian Falls, the water park has just opened, along with our zoo, like you just indicated. What can you tell us about the splash pads and some of those kind of things? I know I mentioned the one earlier about one in Pecan Bottom being resurfaced and cleaned up. Have you done some other work, and when are those going to open?
Sure. In fact, we're going to see those start to open very soon, and we're looking at, the governor came out allowing water parks to open up. What we're at right now, Larry, is when a water park like Hawaiian Falls is able to open this weekend, they're still having to operate at a 25% capacity. And so there's spacing effect. One of the things with the splash pads that's been difficult is we don't have monitors. They're an open air facility, which is good because it's outdoors, but you have kids running in and out. There's really no way to control those crowds without us having like a park ranger or an employee station there. And you're also hitting buttons, getting the water on. So those are high touch areas. That's been a little more difficult for us just to say, let's go at it, because we know once we do, it's all on. So we are following the guidance of the governor in regards to water parks and splash areas, but that's something we're going to be seeing very soon. Same with our playgrounds. We know kids want to play. It's a great activities to get that energy out. But once again, you have to think about how many hands are going everywhere and how often can we clean them. It's not really feasible for us to have the playground open in the week and then close on the weekend, or vice versa. Yeah. So those are all things we're balancing out. And the same goes to be said, a lot of our Waco Mammoth National Monument. And that's in coordination with the National Park Service. We've got our trails open out there. You can go out to the park. But sort of this next phase we're looking at is how do we conduct those inside tours to where you have a contained area. We have a small welcome center. So the indoor facilities, just like at the zoo, they're currently closed. The aquarium, the herpetarium, retail, those are all a little more difficult pieces of the equation. While we're able to get something open, we've got a little ways to go. But I tell you, it's amazing. We've been working a lot of consistency with our library and the zoo and our community centers. And that's a big component that are very crucial to a part of people's lives. You know, we're rolling out a brand new program here starting this week called Recess. And it's Waco Summer Recess. And if you take the REC at the start, that's about rec, and it's about the recreation. What we're going to be doing is a virtual campaign, and also sort of an on-the-go campaign, to where every day we're going to have a new feature, a different area of the department, of an activity that you can do with your kids, and also sort of an introduction to different things in our department. So it's a complete branding campaign, and that's where we're starting out with our community centers. And getting a lot of their traditional programming, we're going to have it available online. So we're going to be starting that. And I tell you, with the community centers, there's a lot of different aspects to it, but we had to find a way and get creative without us doing our traditional summer camps. How do we take the recreation to the people? That involves maybe some virtual stuff, but then it's also, as we get a little on into the summer, we're going to be going out to the neighborhood parks and doing small activities with kids around the neighborhood, to where our staff goes out to the parks, whether it's a kickball game, whether it's life-size Jenga, or those types of activities, just giving people, an area to get outside and enjoy our neighborhood parks.
Well, especially with kids, they're the hardest ones, like you said earlier, to control as far as touching and hugging and playing and high-fiving and whatever else, because they're out having fun. We've all been kids at one time, some of us longer than others ago. But it is. And I know at our church, I've talked about, I work in children's ministry. Hey, the kids are not the kind of people you can easily control. Let the parents still keep them under control until things change and we get better educated on how to do that. So, but I know your summer camps have always been a major help for a lot of people who do work, and they need that daytime care. What type of thing are you going to either recommend or bring to the people for daycare type situations that you provide?
Well, I'll tell you, there is no doubt the decision with our summer camps and keeping our centers closed a little extra longer, one of the toughest decisions I've had to work with. Because you do think about, I have young kids myself. You think about the families, they've already been off, and not in school, but a lot of parents were at home at the time if they weren't in an essential field. But now that everything's opening back up, people have work. And that was a very tough deal. And first and foremost, with our community centers, they're not just child care centers. They are public facilities. So where when you're open, you have different people coming in and out. The last thing we want to put any kid at risk. You're in a contained environment. We often take a lot of field trips, provide kids with those experiences that they might not have the opportunity to go and travel to a different attraction, maybe down in Temple or maybe up to the Metroplex. And so field trips were very important with us. Like I said, it's just a lot of interaction, a lot of contact, a lot of playing. And so those are all elements that played in the decision of, at this point, especially in June, we felt like it was still too soon to be putting kids in that environment. And I know it creates some really hardships. And so what we're doing is trying to figure out, working with WISD, how can we still provide a meal pickup? Kids can still come get meals. How can we do some smaller programming? I mentioned the virtual programming. That's not for everybody. You got the on-the-go programming. But as this summer progresses, and if things continue to trend well, we're going to start implementing some mini programs, limited class sizes to where you don't have the full 80 to 100 kids, to where you can do some pre-registration, maybe for a half day. These are all different programming activities that we're going to be rolling out. Like I said, there's just such a high level of uncertainty. I think it's going to be very interesting to see, where our numbers are at. But most importantly, we understand there is a need for kids to stay active, to stay healthy, and just stimulate the brain and the body. And so that's where we're coming out with our recess program, and that's all going to be available at waco-texas.com and also on our social media channels.
Fantastic. You mentioned the meal program. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that's important, because I know there's been a big change in the way the Waco ISD and a lot of the school systems provide them free breakfast, free lunches, and things like that. Are you all in connection with that again this year? And talk a little bit about that. And I plan to have the Waco ISD food coordinator on our program maybe next week or so, because I want to make sure our community knows that those meals are still being offered. And just because of the COVID, the not touchy-feely type thing, we're still going to provide those meals.
Well, I tell you, we have been having the conversations with Waco ISD and their food nutrition area to make sure those meals are provided and getting out at our camps. We'll be doing breakfasts and a lunch and snack, and that's very important for us. If not at our particular centers, these will be available at different locations around Waco. And what's important for us is, how do we communicate communicate that. We've been going through our list right now as we roll out our programming and different opportunities, whether it be with meals, our activities. You know, we're going back in our databases from years, previous campers, making sure we get information out to them to let them know these opportunities are available. It's very important, and you know, it's just communication is extremely letting people know that this is out there. This is what we're going to be offering at the centers. You know, and we really hope as we sort of roll out the opening of the centers, you know, you got things such as our weight room and the fitness classes, and those can be some distancing and cleaning. You got open gyms, but then you roll in, you've got the meeting rooms and the computer labs. I mean, there are the game rooms that kids can come and play in the afternoon. So those are all hoping, you know, as the summer progresses, we're going to be able to incorporate some of those traditional items back into the programming.
Well, I know a lot of the programs we've been talking about have been around the kids and stuff.
Yeah.
But what about the Harrison Center and the Saul Ross Center? I know they always have dances and stuff at the Saul Ross Center. What's the status for the older folks?
Well, it's another one. And right now, that one is until further notice. You know, such an at-risk population. I tell you, I just take any activity or any time we open things back up. And this goes back to the very start with the golf course, or now we're talking about playgrounds and splash pads and camps. Like anything you do, you have to think about your user group, and we don't want to put anybody at a risk. Both of those facilities, specifically the Harrison Center, you know, we also use as indoor rentals. We rent facilities across the city, whether that be a pavilion, Cameron Park Clubhouse. We're still sticking to, right now, that 10-person limit, and so we're not doing the rentals. We're hoping to open that back up, but you will likely have some capacity limits. How do you monitor that? That's extremely important. I tell you, we've got a partner in Central Texas Senior Ministries that help us in regards to the programming at those facilities. And once we get to a point, you know, from the governor to be able to allow those senior activities, we'll definitely be looking at that. But right now, the timetable's still open on our senior centers.
Talk to us about the double R ball fields, because that's been a big thing. It always, you know, they play ball out there, seems like 9 months of the year at least. Right. And to drive by there and see those beautiful fields, like you're talking about, they're beautiful right now, but they're not being used. At what point in time are they going to be able to start playing ball and more than 10 people play baseball?
Oh, sure. And I mean, there's, you talk about some bad timing. You take away baseball in the middle of the spring and summer. Yeah. I tell you, and not only the kids got the itch to play, the parents got the itch to see the kids play. Parents got the itch to play in the summer softball leagues. It's across the board. So what we've gotten from the state, practices can begin on May 31st. So that's rolling out, and we'll be seeing teams can practice on city fields that traditionally have. Games cannot start up until June 15th. And so, Larry, what we're really determining about is if we were to allow games at Riverbend Park in the form of tournaments, we have tournaments on the weekend, a great economic driver for us. What do the protocols and the guidelines look like as far as people in the dugout? The great thing about baseball is you have a nation full of strong organizations, organizing bodies, whether it be Little League, USSSA. I mean, you have all these organizing bodies that are really putting in strict protocols where if you're part of this organization, these things are going to have to be in place. But baseball is very tough, you know, especially at Riverbend Park where you got 8 fields. You got bleachers, you got concession stands, the dugouts, you got shared equipment, all those things. But I tell you, I know that parents and players are very cognizant of getting out there and wanting to see things resume. In regards to our own city leagues, you know, our tournaments, those are outside tournament organizations come in. We rent the fields out to them. We do host our softball leagues, those adult softball. So we've had to cancel out up until now. And what we're seeing is this June 15th date really falls in between our summer 1 and summer 2 session. So I feel we will probably hold off perhaps past the July 4th holiday to get that summer 2 session started. And then we'll roll in, do summer 2, and then we'll be able to have some fall leagues. You know, it's hard. You know, we get the dates from the state of you can do this on this certain date. And I tell you, but Governor Ivey was very good. Just because we say this date doesn't mean you have to. And with every area, we've been very, very cautious and just sort of looking at our options. And if we open something, what's it going to look like? And then what the impact will be. And so that's where we're at with all of our areas right now. Like I said, a lot of thought, like we were discussing earlier. The work level is definitely increased, but but it's given us a challenge, man, and it's allowed us the opportunity to get creative and be innovative with the programs that we
Absolutely.
have.
Well, it's everything like you indicated. There's just about every department of the city has done the same thing. They've had to alter the way we do things. I mean, we have our department director meetings every week, all virtually now. And city council meetings are virtual. Planning commission meetings are virtual. We're learning a lot of virtual, and we're keeping our distances for what we're doing here.
I think, I'm a people person. And one cool thing, like I said, that's come out of this is the amount of community input and response that I've been able to have and talk to our community members. And whether that be somebody from the baseball, sector, whether it be somebody putting on an event, whether somebody's grass is too high in their park. I mean, those are all things. But I tell you what, people getting out and enjoying our park system more, people have been telling us, giving us thoughts, or just asking questions. When can we do this? Can we go and do this? So it's given us a chance to interact with the public, and I think that's a great thing. We're here for the people of Waco and our park system, and like I said, we want to be that place where people can come together, but right now as we come together, we just have to be safe about it.
We've got about a minute left. I want you to be thinking about anything else. I want to be sure we get out there, but I'm going to ask you the hot question, I guess it is. I know everybody's going to be thinking about what their plans are going to be for 4th of July.
Yeah.
And I know you all have had to drop the whole idea of the big 4th of Brazos.
Sure.
Is there any thoughts on that, and what else would you like to add? About 55 seconds.
Well, I tell you what, it's very unfortunate, and I have to give credit to our sponsor of HEB. Every year, in and out, they come and do wonders with our community with this, 4th of July celebration. And I tell you, that was a very tough decision, but just a lot of people. So what we're doing, exploring a couple ideas. One, we're looking through our old footage of fireworks shows that have been grand and great in the past. Is that something we work with y'all to make that available to where families can sit around, whether on their phone or whether it's TV, watch a fireworks show, still provide that opportunity. We're also looking at parades. Neighborhood parades have been a big tradition in Waco. We've got some of those. There's some opportunities to thank our frontline workers. And so we're exploring those, but most importantly, we want people to get out and enjoy the park safely on July 4th.
Well, you always give us so many opportunities in our park system. You have beautiful parks, well manicured, great dedicated staff. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in here. And sorry we're not sitting as close as we can.
That's all right.
And bump knuckles or
Well,
whatever
I tell
else.
you, I love to come and talk about what we're doing. And I tell you, rest assured, we're moving onward and upward. And make sure you go in and check us out online. Our new recess program is coming out for the summer because we all need a little recess right now and a little reset on how we do things. So check it out. We've got a lot of exciting things happening.
Johnathan Cook with the Waco Parks and Recreation Department has been our guest. Johnathan, thank you for being with us. On a routine basis, the Waco-McLennan County Public Health District inspects numerous food establishments throughout the county to assure they meet health district requirements. Normally at this time, we give you the names of the food establishments receiving a score of 20 or more demerits. The good news is there were no food establishments receiving a score of 20 or more demerits between May the 17th and May the 23rd. Now, we'd like to acknowledge the establishments that received no demerits between May the 17th and May the 23rd. In Belmead, Barbara Sue's at 1200 New Dallas Highway. In Lorena, Chili's at 4612 Spring Valley Road. In McGregor, American Legion Post McGregor at 202 South Jefferson Street. In Riesel, Dollar General Store at 501 South Memorial Street. In Robinson, Master's Workshop Camp at 179 Church Camp Lane. Mickey's Pit Stop at 311 South Robinson Drive. In Waco, Antioch Community Church at 510 North 20th Street. Applebee's Neighborhood Grill at 614 North Valley Mills Drive. Bill Logue Juvenile Justice Court at 2601 Golson Road. The Blazing Asian at 720 Franklin Avenue. Captain Billy Whizbangs at 901 Lake Air Drive. Twix Billiards Incorporated at 1200 Richland Street. Club Sandwich at 608 Austin Avenue. Davis Crispy Chicken at 2307 Franklin Avenue. Dr. Pepper Museum Enterprises at 318 South 5th Street. Guana Kitchen at 2401 J.J. Flew Allen Road. HOT Doghouse at 901 Lake Air Drive. La Palma Catering at 1726 Herring Avenue. La Vega Junior High George Dixon at 4401 Archer Lane. Lucky Store at 2920 South 12th Street. Papa Bears Incorporated at 3015 Golson Road. Portofino at 725 Austin Avenue. Premier High School of Waco at 4720 North 19th Street. Shepherd's Heart at 1401 North 34th Street. Taco Bell at 120 North Valley Mills Drive. Waco Eastern Little League at 2405 J.J. Fluellen Road. Way Cool Tacos at 720 Franklin Avenue. Wild About Waffles at 1500 Columbus Avenue. Wiley's Bar and Grill at 2716 East Industrial Boulevard. In West, Sefco at 215 South George Casera Drive. Ice Ice Baby at 200 Tokyo Road. The Tipsy Lion Bar and Grill at 128 North Main Street. West Elementary Cafeteria at 209 North Harrison Street, and West ISD Football Concession at 1008 Jerry Mossick Drive. A list of inspection scores for all Waco McLennan County food establishments is available on the City of Waco website at waco-texas.com. Just click on Departments and scroll down to Health District. The food score link is to the right, listed first. We hope you'll join us again next week for more information about the City of Waco on City Talk. This program is produced by the Municipal Information Department of the City of Waco, and it's provided as a public service by this station.